Hey everyone, Dan Savadra here from Merger Data, and we are on day 25 of the 90-day YouTube sprint on signal analytics. And today we are going to be diving into examples of lead scores. So this is continued from the last video where we went into the specific ingredients or data points that make up lead scores, a great aggregate measure, a great aggregate signal. So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and actually go into some solid examples. So we won't get to all four categories on this one. I know in the last video we went into four different categories, or no, it was 2 videos ago. We went into 4 different categories of lead scores. We'll get through 2 in this one, so it won't be too long, and then we'll go through the last 2 in the next video. Quick announcement. If you're already listening to this on podcast and you don't need to hear this, but if you're not listening to it on a podcast and you would like to, we now have all these episodes published as podcast episodes. They'll be trickling out one by one. Obviously, the video provides some additional context because we are using specific graphics throughout these presentations. Without further ado, who is this for? Same exact as the last one, same exact group as the last one. Leadership plus the team in the trio: marketing, sales, RevOps. And then we have IT as well to help with the integration. So everyone needs to be involved, like we talked about in previous videos. You need the strategy of what lead scores are going to matter and how you're going to direct your actual strategy and actions based off of that. And then the team needs to be building these individual scores with the data, and IT needs to be involved to make sure that all the integrations and everything else are flowing into the CRM for you to provide these accurate scores. So lead scores can be great for leverage in terms of knowing who you're contacting, whether or not they're a good fit, what messaging is working, all that other good stuff that we've been through. And so why you should care about this presentation. 1, accurate lead scores lead to efficient teams. If you can nail down your lead scores, your team can look at these and understand what's going on with an account, with a contact, and then how that relates to the deal, if there is a deal that exists already. And so that means you get better close rates and you get efficient retargeting and campaigns. Better close rates for sales because you know who to focus on. You're not wasting time on bad prospects. If you do have time, for whatever reason, you can always go back and focus on the worst fit prospects. So the ones that really didn't show that they were going to convert to a customer. And you can always automate a downsell portion or a non-fit type sequence, whatever you want to do. So it leads to better close rates because you're focusing on people who are going to be successful in converting. And then efficient retargeting campaigns is specifically for marketing. And so when we talk about getting all this data in the CRM, we can also feed all that data back to the ad platforms. And if you have good creatives, you have different messaging, you can target people based off of many, many factors and make sure that you're converting better from a marketing specific lead to someone who's actually in the pipeline talking with sales. Remember, we're talking about B2B here. So a lot of these B2B processes still have sales involved, which is why I say that. Full lifecycle and pipeline applicability, which means more money. You can apply these lead scores across every single part of the customer journey. Different categories and different types of scores can be focused on different types of different parts of the life cycle, and then different parts of the pipelines or specific pipelines. But either way, you can set up scores across this entire customer journey and understand it better, which should lead to making more money. And then 3, accurate projections. It's a difficult part of business. Being able to say what you're going to make next year, at least project what you should set your goal at, and then set that goal and see if you're going to hit it. Those are difficult things to get right. And there's a lot of variables that go into it. Now, with lead scores, you're going to be able to better categorize exactly how you're getting people into the funnel and how they're converting throughout the entire process. And it gives a really nice cohort breakdown that you can take to the other people in leadership, or you can take to your superiors, and you can show them and say, hey, this specific category of people we are getting into the funnel and converting at this rate. We should increase our budget for these people, for this messaging, for this service, for this product, and it should lead to this outcome. Now, obviously, it's not completely straightforward. It's not like you can just see what happened in the past, extrapolate out linearly, and assume success at a bigger scale. But you can still make a better argument for getting more budget for a specific campaign or specific initiative that you're doing. So you should be able to get more results as well. More accurate projections are going to allow you to understand what your staffing headcount needs to be like, what type of budget you need to put into each type of campaign, what that's going to result in terms of opportunities for sales, what that's going to lead to in terms of churn, in terms of conversion, revenue collected, which services, which products. You get the point. So this is why we should care. And so each category needs a score. Use a 1 through 5 scale. I hate seeing 1 through 10s. I hate seeing 1 through 100. 1 through 3 is not detailed enough. 1 through 5 is what I see work with our clients. It provides a very straightforward framework. Some even go 1 through 4, where they eliminate this neutral position. But the reason you want to go 1 through 5 is it's very easy to categorize. 1 means very bad, 2 means just bad, 3 means neutral, 4 means good, 5 means very good. People split hairs on this all the time. When I used to work corporate, there used to be meetings about this crap, and it was a complete waste of time. They'd spend months trying to figure out what scoring scale they're going to use. And when in reality, this is good enough for a lot of people. And so 1 through 4 is interesting because you get rid of this neutral position, so it really forces either a good or bad categorization. I like leaving it in just in case. Sometimes you really don't know, and so you can keep people as neutral and then reanalyze it later. And so you want to use a 1 through 5 scale, and then every single category we've talked about in previous videos, position, time, behavior, insights, needs to have a score because they're all critical to your operations, to your analysis. It's all part of the picture, right? So once you have scores for each category, you can then combine them however you want. That's the beauty of it. If you just do 1 score for each category, that's fine. But start somewhere, get a score for each category. Crossing categories for 1 score, if it's not broken up first, can be very, very difficult and confusing, and it doesn't lead to good analysis. So each score needs evidence as well. We can't pass this point without stopping and considering this. A score needs to be walked back into based off of data you have. For our clients, they already have product that they've sold, services that they've sold. So they have that historical data. It might be difficult to get to, right? That's part of the process that our team takes on, is backfilling that historical data and looking at it and making sure that we can figure out what type of score needs to be created and what each type of data point should lead to in terms of a score, 1 through 5. So score should not be random. Did the data point indicate success or failure? This is your scoring criteria. So same thing we've been talking about. See if that data point is leading to something, if it's a signal. If it is, then you should include it in your score. It shouldn't just be randomly selected. A lot of people say, oh, it sounds good. They viewed more than 50 pages. It's an indication there are 5 on their behavior. But in reality, you look at the data and people who have over 50 pages never converted because they're actually bots. So you have to make sure that you actually have data behind each individual score. So example 1, let's actually get into the examples here. 1 score, each category weighted. So we have the pie chart that we used before. If you hover over it, it's a percentage of the total. And so if we get into the actual calculation, we have it split into 4 different categories here. We have the conversion probability, the pain point fit, the content engagement, and then the recency of engagement. And so position is conversion probability, insight is pain point fit, behavior is content engagement, and then time is recency of engagement. And you can see here that we have the criteria for each. So conversion probability is historical conversion from this stage to a customer. So we want to see from this point in the life cycle stage or in the deal stage or both, what has been the conversion rate to customer. And then we're going to use that for this score, this weighted score. We're going to say it's a 4 out of 5, and then you weight it by multiplying it by the percentage of the weight. So 30%, 0.3 equals 1.2. I won't go over that math for each point because you get it now. Pain point fit. So 1 would be no pain and no fit. 5 would be a big pain and a perfect fit based off of the services you provide, the ICP you have, and historical data of what those pains have been and how you have solved them and that your company can solve them. And so for this one, we did a 3 out of 5. Content engagement, this would be intent-based engagement scale. And so when I'm talking about an intent-based engagement scale, we're looking at specific assets that they've interacted with. It could be either phone calls, it can be emails, it can be PDFs on your website, it can be LinkedIn posts, it can be form submissions, whatever it may be. This has to be weighted based off of intent. So you have to look back at your historical data or experiment with new content or categorize the new content into an existing category that you know the success rate of. And then you have to determine what that intent is, and then you weight that 1 through 5. So for example, if someone has engaged with your order of operations of services, right? You have a very detailed document. It goes through all 100 steps that you take when you're engaging with a client. Then you know that that's a 4 out of 5. That people who read that and have gotten that far are actually going to convert at a pretty good rate. So you'd say 4 out of 5, it's a pretty strong signal. And then recency of engagement. So one is an engagement less, I'm sorry, let me start over. 1 is an engagement greater than 30 days ago. 5 is a conversion today. And so this is a decay type measurement, because that the longer you wait after someone has engaged, the worse your conversion is going to get in terms of getting them to the next stage or getting them to a customer. And so this is relevant for a lot of people. You submit a form, you submit a meeting request. If someone doesn't reach out soon, the likelihood of success diminishes rapidly. And so you need to get people on the phone the day they submit a form with high intent. Even if they scheduled a meeting 7 days later or 3 days later, it doesn't hurt to call them or email them and say, hey, saw you scheduled a meeting, wondering if this was a problem, whatever your script may be. I'm not a sales guy, but you take that recency of engagement and you see what that decay is for your company and what that leads to in terms of conversion from each stage to each stage. For one of our clients, it was as easy as identifying this recency of engagement stat and then focusing on that in order to increase conversion by a lot. We were talking about an average time to respond from about 7 days down to hours. And that doubled their conversion rates in 1 month, because they were losing interest of people. And it was so much harder for their closers to actually close a deal when the setters weren't getting to them for 6 or 7 days or longer, because you're not relevant in their mind anymore. And so they're doing something else. But if they called them right away, they were thinking about your brand. They just clicked on your ad. They had just watched your video. It was so much easier to set a meeting for the setters. And then the closers would get meetings sooner on their calendar. And then they would be more relevant in the prospect's mind. And the problem would be hurting more, so they wouldn't have to spend all this time digging it up again. You get the point. And so that's the first example. Second example here, which is the last one we'll go over, because we're already at 13 minutes. Different score for each category, no weighting. So that means it's all going to be weighted evenly. You just add them up all together. The benefits of this we talked about before: more detailed automations and easier understanding across a team. You can just look at each individual score and then add them up. And so it's easier to do the math in your head. It's easier to understand what means what. It's not as accurate just because they're all weighted evenly. So that's the downside to it. But for this, we're breaking it up into the categories. One could be a behavior score. Pricing, the example would be pricing page visit plus a form submission plus multiple account website visits. So let's say you have an account with 8 contacts, 6 of them visit your website within the last 7 days, then that's a pretty strong signal that they're talking about you and strongly considering. So we break this down. If all have happened in the last 7 days, then you get a 5. 2 of 3 in the last 7 days is a 4. 1 of 3 in the last 7 days is a 3. 3 of 3 in 7 to 30 days is a 2. And then none of the above is a 1. So it's all about the relevancy, the recency of these behaviors. And so we categorize all in the last 7 days as a 5. And then if it's partial, it's less. So that's our behavior score. And then we go to the insight score, which would be an example. An example would be of ICP job fit plus a company size fit plus 35 to 45-year-old male plus HubSpot CRM plus ROI on revenue activity as the pain. So this is an example of something that we would use as a company if the job title is something like a CMO or a CSO, and then the company size is somewhere between 50 and 100 people, and then the person who we are interacting with is a 35 to 45-year-old male, and they use HubSpot, and we know either from a conversation with them or a form fill or videos that are watched or an asset that's downloaded that the ROI on their revenue activity is the big issue. So being able to tie back signals to revenue, being able to tie back activities to revenue is the issue they're facing because of budget cuts, need for more budget, need for more headcount, need to increase their revenue, whatever it may be. Then we know if they meet all of these criteria, then it's 5. 4 of 5 is a 4, 3 of 5, you get the idea, right? So that's the insight score. And then the time score is time in current stage plus time since creation plus momentum. This is an example, remember? So if they've been less than 3 days in the current stage and less than 7 days since creation and a 1.0 on their momentum calculation, then that would equal a 5. And so we're talking about for momentum, it's how fast they're moving through the life cycle stages and the deal funnels and the recency of their conversions, a little calculation that we do. And then the opposite of that, so a 1 would be if they've been more than 14 days in the current stage, more than 30 days since creation, and 0.0 momentum calculation. So they move slowly through the pipeline for that momentum calculation. They come to a grinding halt. They've been sitting there for a while. It's been more than 30 days since we first got them as a contact or as a lead. Then we know it's a 1. Their time score is pretty low. And then last but not least is the position score. So you got the life cycle stage plus the lead stage plus the deal stage is the example we're using here. So you use all 3 of those to determine what your score would be. And so for this one, I used just a 5 and a 3 example, and I'll say 1 out loud, even though it's not on the slide here. But a 5 would be the existing customer plus a negotiation deal stage. So you know that they are an open lead. They already were a customer at some point, and they are negotiating on their deal. That's a 5. They're pretty freaking close, right? So their position is a 5. Now you can have different combinations for a 5. I was just giving one example. They could still be a new customer, but they could have a deal that has a contract out. That might be a 5 as well. There could be less obvious examples that are also a 5. So it could be an existing customer interested in a specific upsell product, so they're in a specific pipeline. That could be a 5. And then an example of a 3, to move on here, could be a new contact plus a meeting that you had together, and then you're scoping. That's your deal stage. So the new contact is the life cycle stage. It could be lead contact life cycle stage. And then meeting held could be the lead stage, and then deal stage would be scoping. So that's like a pretty neutral one. Like you have a deal in progress, you're trying to figure things out, what the scope might be, and that's a 3. And then a 1 would be a new contact. You couldn't get a hold of them. That's pretty much it. It's a 1, right? They haven't engaged at all. They never visited your website, all that type of stuff. So that's the position score. And then what I didn't include on here in the visual, but I will describe out loud because this is the example, is that these are now all out of 5. And so you would just add them up. It's pretty simple. You scored a 20, so 5 out of 5 on four categories there. Congratulations, you have a perfect lead. They're probably going to close. It should close. You just add them up. And then you could do the same. You can even do the same categorization. You could average them instead of adding them up to 20. Add them up and then divide them by 4, right? And so then you know from the 1 through 5 scale, if they're a 3.2, then they're pretty neutral. If they're a 4.5, okay, they're pretty close to being a really good fit. So that's all you do with this example. And so the next video, we'll go over the next 2 examples. The 4th one is the one that we use all the time. It can be very, very accurate if you get it right, if you dial it in. So we'll go over that one. Last thing, take one action. Not last thing, I got one more slide after this. Take one action, like, comment, share in a company chat. So if you've gotten value from this, if you've learned something, or maybe there's a new perspective that you'd like to to share in your organization or bring to your organization, obviously share it in the company chat, this video or other videos, but also book a call with our team. This is stuff we do every day. So if you're B2B, we build this out. We run it for you. There's a lot of steps that go along the way, but it's the best way to get to the end results that we talked about in other videos of doubling closing rates, of increasing revenue year over year. This is one of the best ways to go about it. It's data driven. We've seen it across different businesses. Book a call with our team and go from there. So last but not least, next video is part 4 of lead scores. So we got our last 2 examples coming up. Don't forget about the free signal constructor tool. The link is in the bio to sign up for that. It's going to give you a drop-down menu where you can select each number that you want to measure, the different dimensions that you want to slice and dice your data by, the criteria and the actions for your team to take. You'll have an exact map of where to go with signals. So don't forget to get that resource. It's free. We've gotten great feedback on it. I'm Dan Saavedra from Merger Data. Thanks for watching. Book a call with our team. We love to talk about this stuff. We love to see success with our clients. So see if we can do that for you as well.